You ever watch a movie and get that nagging feeling? Hang on, I've seen this plot before. Well, for years, film buffs have been talking about the crazy similarity between a 1991 Indian comedy and a massive 1997 Hollywood blockbuster. One definitely came first, but is that the whole story?
Okay, let's just get right into it. The big question is this. When two movies from completely different parts of the world have the exact same premise, a liar who's suddenly forced to tell the truth, is that just a wild coincidence, or is something else going on here? Like, was it stolen?
All right, so here are our two main players. On one side, we've got the Telugu film April 1 Vidudala, which came out in 1991. And on the other, the huge Hollywood hit Liar Liar from 1997. Now, those dates are your first big clue, but trust me, the full story is way more surprising than just a simple timeline.
So, let's start with the most definitive piece of evidence there is. The one that basically delivers a knockout punch to the copycat argument before we even get started. Here it is, plain and simple. April 1 Vidudala hit theaters way back in February of 1991. Liar Liar was released in March of 1997. The math here is, well, it's undeniable.
That is a 6-year gap. The Indian film came out a full 6 years before the Hollywood version, so it's just chronologically impossible for April 1 Vidudala to be the copy. Case closed on that point, right? But this is actually where the mystery gets even deeper.
So if it wasn't a copy, where did this brilliant idea come from in the first place? Well, the answer isn't in another movie, it's on a bookshelf.
That's right, April 1 Vidudala is actually an official adaptation of a Telugu novel. Its cinematic DNA is purely literary. And more importantly, it's deeply, deeply rooted in its own local culture. And the novel's title is the key to everything, Harishchandrudu Abhidhamma Marite. It translates to, If Harishchandra Lied. Now, in Indian mythology, King Harishchandra is the absolute symbol of truth, a man who would sacrifice anything to keep his word. So the title itself is this incredible what-if scenario. It takes this cultural icon of honesty and completely flips the script, creating the exact problem for our hero.
But you know what? Forget the timeline for a second. If you actually look at the mechanics of the plots, you realize these are two fundamentally different stories that just happen to share a similar theme.
Okay, think about it like this. In April 1 Vidudala, the hero makes a conscious choice. It's a deal he makes with himself to be honest for 1 month to win over a woman. His struggle is all internal. It's a test of his own character. But in Liar Liar, the main character is hit with an involuntary magical curse from his son's birthday wish. He is physically incapable of lying. So one story is about personal choice, the other is a fantasy about an external force.
And that core difference leads to totally unique kinds of comedy. For instance, there's this famous scene in April 1 Vidudala where the hero visits a sweet shop. Because of his self-imposed vow, he feels this internal pressure to be disastrously, hilariously honest about how bad the sweets are, and it just causes total chaos. It's a fantastic test of his willpower.
But the film doesn't stop there. It actually shifts from comedy into a thriller when that very same vow forces him to expose a murder committed by his own friend. The stakes are suddenly not just about love anymore, they're about life and death. And it explores this much darker theme that maybe, just maybe, absolute truth isn't always the best path.
So, far from being a copy, April 1 Vidudala really stands on its own as a unique, influential original. And you know what? The evidence for that doesn't even stop there.
And hey, this isn't some new discovery. Fans and critics have been pointing this out for ages. This quote really captures that feeling perfectly, giving credit where it's due for experimenting with such a high-concept idea long before its more famous Hollywood cousin.
This all reveals a really clear chain of creation. It all starts with a unique literary idea. That idea gets adapted into a super hit movie, and then that hit movie becomes a source of inspiration for even more films.
And here is the final proof. April 1 Vidudala was so successful that it was officially remade multiple times in other Indian languages. I mean, just think about that for a second. A copycat film almost never spawns its own successful family of remakes. That's the mark of a true original.
Which really leaves us with one last question to chew on. We so often use comparisons to judge a movie's worth, but when a film is clearly a pioneer with its own unique literary origins, its own distinct story mechanics, and its own legacy of inspiring others, maybe the best way to appreciate it isn't by comparing it to anything else at all, but by celebrating it for exactly what it is.